Hey, Dave. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Board of Supervisors 1:30 meeting. We are in budget today, and we're going to ask the chambers to please come to a hush. Thank you very much. Call the meeting to order, and that means we begin with item 107, which is the roll call, which is for the purpose of establishing a quorum. So, Madam Clerk, if we could ask you to help us do that, please.
Supervisor Ellenberg? Here. Supervisor Wasserman?
Here.
Supervisor Cortese? Here. Vice President Chavez? Here. And President Simidian?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The presence of a quorum having been established, we're going to ask that all who are able please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led today by our Board Vice President, Supervisor Cindy Chavez. Supervisor?
Thank you. Ready, begin.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. That takes us to item 109. Item 109 is that portion of our agenda set aside for comment by members of the public on non-agendized items that are properly within the jurisdiction of our board. We do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 speakers under public comment today. So we're going to ask folks to come forward. And let me just ask, do I have all of the cards for item 109, public comment? Last call. Third and final call. Last call. All right, then we're going to call it all in, and we're going to allow 3 minutes, not 2, Madam Clerk, because that is consistent with the rules of our board. And we're going to ask Carmela De Sopa and Bonita Aguirre and Armas and forgive me, I just can't read the first name, but the last name is Mirabal, and then Mr. Largent. Welcome. Please come forward. Thank you for being with us today. And I apologize. We need to make that microphone much louder for you. It's there. It's built in. So let's reset the time. Great. Thank you. Start once again.
Is this better?
Way better.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Carmela De Sopa. I've been a Santa Clara County employee for 20 years. As an employee of Santa Clara County, I enjoy working with the general public. There's no better feeling than being able to help someone solve a problem. But as Silicon Valley has flourished, the cost of living and working here has become increasingly difficult. Day by day, it becomes more and more difficult just to break even. We have watched our county make and spend money in huge sums, purchasing property and 3 hospitals, just to name a few. This past tax collection peak broke all records due to rising property taxes. The record was broke as it has for the last 3 years in a row now. But at the same time, we, your employees, are now finding ourselves standing in line for the same benefits that we provide to the general public. Did you know that you have employees working in this very building that are homeless? We are asking for your help. Our contract expires in a few days, which is just prior to you taking leave. We need the county to negotiate a fair contract with us, not one that is full of takeaways and being told that we are overpaid. For some reason, that just doesn't cut it when you sleep in a car every night. We're asking for your help to continue to provide the multitude of services we provide for this county, and to make Santa Clara County a place where we can all live, work, and continue to thrive together. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please come on and line up, and that'll help us move along expeditiously. So Ms. Aguirre, and then Armas, and then Mr. and Ms. Mirabal. Forgive me, I can't read the writing, and then Mr. Largent. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Bonita Aguirre, and I work at Valley Medical in the kitchen department, and I've been with the county for about 9 years now. And I'm coming here today before you to tell you about the food service workers. You know, we come to work every day. A lot of the workers are struggling just to provide for themselves. A lot of the workers are having to work 2 jobs just to be able to pay the rent. We have some employees that can just barely afford to eat. Some have to go from motel room to motel room because they cannot afford to be able to provide a decent living space for themselves. A lot of the times the employees have to decide either to work overtime or spend time with their families because they need to work that overtime in order to make up for what they're missing. And not only that, but our workload has increased, and with that, we need to earn a little bit more of a decent wage. That's why I'm here to ask you to support us and to give us a decent living wage to be able to afford to live here. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to you and your colleagues for the work you do, by the way.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hello, Board of Supervisors. I am Armas. I'm a medical assistant at Valley Medical Center. And I'm here because I'm concerned about our contract. When we first started negotiations, we asked for a 9% increase in our salary based on the cost of living, which of course the county doesn't want to recognize that. They don't even want to hear that word. So they came back with a 1%, which is kind of an insult, you know, taking into consideration how difficult and how hard it is to live in the county of Santa Clara, especially with the rents. They're very expensive. We're asking for a little bit of respect and dignity. We put it on the table to discuss these two topics, respect and dignity. The county came back and gave us the paper that we gave them with the respect and dignity crossed out, which means that they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to give us the respect and the dignity that we deserve as workers of the county, as supporters of our family and members of our community. You know, not only this 1% they're offering us for an increase over the next 3 years, but they are telling us that they want us to pay 3% more to keep our medical benefits. This translates into a pay cut, and we just can't afford that. And I believe the county has money, and I'm sure the county is sitting on some money, because I remember 2 years ago when I was going through the realignment process, they say no. They wouldn't give us a decent raise. And then I hear, when I came to the Board of Supervisors to hear the county give you their report on the budget, they say that they had a $3 million surplus, and they even asked if they could keep it, or if you, the Board of Supervisors, would ask if to return it to you. So all of these things doesn't make sense. You know, the county has money, the county knows the situation that we're in as workers, and I think we need to get a little bit of what, you know, we are the ones that we're the working class. We are the people that does the job, and management is the people who receives the credit for our hard work. And I would like you to please help us get a decent and fair contract. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me welcome our next speaker up to the microphone.
Hi there. My name is Murda Maribal. I'm here in behalf of our employees, Santa Clara County. I've worked for Santa Clara County for 31 years. I was here yesterday, but I'm not sure if I got my message across. That clock is a little intimidating. I'm a child support officer, and we have hundreds of workers there who are asking for a fair contract. Our side had put language regarding dignity and respect in our negotiating proposal. And when the county came back with their counter proposal, they had removed the language of dignity and respect. We respectfully request that you ask your side to put that language back and leave it there. Everyone should expect and receive dignity and respect. That costs the county nothing. I can't imagine why they would remove that. We're asking for a fair contract. We're asking for a living wage. There are so many of our workers that cannot afford to live here. I mean, you've heard stories. Yesterday there were stories as well. One of my union sisters had shared yesterday that when Santa Clara County was going through a difficult time, we stood by you guys and we didn't accept a raise. We just extended our contracts and we accepted no raises, and we stood by you because it was difficult times. We're asking you now to remember those times and to stand by us and to support us. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker under public comment today is Scott Largent.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm ready when you are. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Scott Largent. I'll get a little organized here. We had packet day out there in the hallway, so I like to grab these and kind of research them. I do the same thing with the mental health ones that I hand out to all the businesses downtown because they don't know about these programs. Now, we have a booth out there, and it's the Office of Immigrant Policy is what I believe it is. And I try to stay in my lane when it comes to things. You know, you don't want to offend anybody or get anybody upset. But one of these packets, I understand us protecting people's rights and protecting immigrants' rights, but we're not doing that for our own citizens here in Santa Clara County because it's obvious when you look over this. I mean, this is actually a great little pamphlet right here. Talks about what a real warrant is, a fake warrant, about producing identification. I mean, this is just all the things that somebody should know how to protect their rights. But what we're doing in Santa Clara County is we're only protecting the rights of the immigrant community. Now, I'm all for everybody being here and everybody getting the same type of help and services out of our county. But what I'm realizing is that we'll have these rapid response teams. We'll just get all the way around that immigrant. We'll protect every single thing. We'll reunite their family. We'll even send attorneys all the way over to the border to defend those rights. Civil rights, family rights. I mean, we'll do everything like that. But we will not do that right across the street over here at the Public Defender's Office. If you went in there right now and said, hey, my civil rights are being violated, they'd say, hey, sorry, we can't really help you. Go get on the internet. Go get the free water. So these services aren't happening. And we have a video that plays in there right now that is very, very outdated. This African-American guy gets pulled over with his daughter in the back seat. I mean, this is just PBS from 1978. I mean, it's extremely old, and that's about all the public gets in that lobby right there. We have really, really old, outdated toys for children to play with, and we do not have updated literature like this. The stuff that's in that office, when you look at it up there, it has so much dust on top of it, and the pamphlets are all bent over the top right there. And here's the other thing. None of the numbers work. So how is that helpful to any American citizen right there? Most American citizens that are poor have to go through that lobby right there and beg for some type of help. Well, I'm telling you, it's not working over there, and I really do think that institution needs to be reordered, another audit right now, and start figuring out what happened to me, what happened to Victorious, and what happened to countless others who got misrepresented in there. I got free water. That's what I got in there. I didn't get a dignified meeting. My rights were not protected. Thank you.
Colleagues, thank you all very much. I believe that completes public comment. I'm looking to the clerk to confirm we have no other speakers. Clerk is indicating we do not have additional speakers under public comment. So that takes us to item 110 under the overview. And Dr. Smith, let me turn to you and ask that you.
We do not have anything to report out for 110.
All right. Well, the recommended action is simply to receive the report. So I'm going to ask the clerk to please post that on our screen. I'm going to ask, just as a formality, for someone to make a motion to receive the report. And thank you to Supervisor Cortese for that. Second from Mr. Wasserman. Absent any speakers, and there are none, we will all simply cast our votes on the screen, and I can announce that the motion to receive that very brief report, Dr. Smith, passes on a 5-0 vote. And that takes us now to 111, vacant positions at Valley Medical Center.
I'll turn that over to Greg Ituria, our Budget Director.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Greg Ituria, County Budget Director. And this is a revised county recommended action to add back 3 positions that were initially targeted for deletion in the recommended budget. But since that was published, we recognized that we needed to add these 3 back to help with the positions that have been hired to support the new hospital acquisitions.
Thank you very much. Any cards? Any speakers? No? Supervisor Wasserman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just going to suggest that all these items under Valley Medical Center that we group together, 111 through 116, was going to be my motion, my suggestion to you and the rest of our board.
I'm going to ask that we take these one by one. I understand the desire to move along expeditiously, but since we have substantive items, and we may have cards on some of them. What I have asked the clerk to do, though, to help us move along expeditiously is to put the motion panels up as quickly as possible on each case so that on this one, for example, somebody can simply lean forward and make the motion as Supervisor Chavez has done and second it as you have done, and then see if there are comments or questions on any individual item. So, but I will try and help move us along as a way to split the difference, Supervisor. And I see Supervisor Ellenberg, your light is on, ma'am.
I do have a comment on 111.
Please. Now is the time.
Thank you. First, I do want to note that I'm pleased to see that the funding for the Roots Clinic and Children's Health Screening have been added back into the revised budget. So thank you very much for that. As I mentioned at yesterday's hearing, I want to be sure that we're prepared to fund the community clinic partners to address the FY19 contract gaps as well as the FY20 contracts going forward. And can you confirm today that the individualized plans and budget implications for the community clinics can come forward to the board at the first August meeting for approval?
Let me try to address that. We're finishing off our individual meetings with the clinics, and then staff will be sitting down and figuring out a reallocation of funding. I'm not at this point certain that we're going to actually need action from the board because some of the clinics have large maximum financial obligations that have been allocated that haven't been used, so much of it might just be moving money around. But if we do need to have a reallocation, we will come back in August for the board to take action on it. And there will not be any break in time because administratively we'll continue the contracts. And basically what it is that some of the clinics need an additional grant, others need operational changes, others will need specific changes to their particular programs, the major programs being PCAP and whole person care. There's also GPP, but we will be able to continue all the clinics with appropriate funding, and there'll be no break.
Which is great news. If we don't need to come back to the board to reallocate, then I would like to request an off-agenda report in August of the status of what contracts have been renewed and signed and which ones are still pending.
Surely.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, Supervisor, I think you jumped ahead to item number 117, which is just fine, understanding that we're trying to move along expeditiously. The item before us, 111, is the Santa Clara Valley Medical Center, but I know we're sort of semi.
You're right. I have 111 to 116.
That's right. No, we're semi-clumping, I gather. So, and I see Supervisor Chavez, your light is on as well.
Thank you. I just, on item 111, wanted to better understand what the three FTEs are. It has the acronym HSRs, and I didn't know what an HSR is.
Yes, through the President. That is Health Service Representative.
Thank goodness. I thought it was high-speed rail.
And so, and their role is?
They have multiple roles throughout the hospital. They're represented by SEIU. They do a number of things, including clerical work in terms of receiving patients in clinic and working on the units. So it's one of those classifications that's utility batter, basically. Lots of different responsibilities.
Primarily the reason I was asking is when I was reading the title, because I saw Health Services Representative, but I don't know what it's still what it is. And the reason I was asking is whether or not we saw that we needed more folks because we were processing more insurance claims, or we're seeing more patients than we were expecting, because it says that this is related to the additional hospitals. And so I didn't understand what that was. I mean, if the reason for that, or if by accident we were just shuffling so many papers, we reduced 3 people that we shouldn't have. Is that what happened?
Yes,
okay.
For the most part, yes.
Okay, thank you. That makes more sense. Thanks.
All right, then, colleagues. Again, the item before us is 111. That's the only item up on the screen at the moment. We could ask all 5 members to please vote on their screens. And Now that that's been done, we'll ask clerk to display the results, announce that the measure carries 5-0, and we're on to item 112. The clerk will again display the screen. We do have a couple of speakers on this item. So let's get a brief presentation from staff, and then I'll go to Sunny Ochoa and Kathleen King, who are both welcome to come up right now as we go to staff first for the report.
Yes, before you is the revised recommended action to allocate funding to the VMC budget to provide children's health screenings in the amount of $984,100.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Chavez, I see your light is on. Okay if I go to the public first, or would you like to weigh in? Sunny Ochoa and Kathleen King, come on up in either order.
Thank you. I'm Kathleen King, I guess age before beauty. We want to thank the HHS staff for choosing our 5 programs for this RFP, and we want to thank the Board of Supervisors and the County Executive for unanimously supporting this RFP a year ago. We really appreciate it. We did count on the RFP stabilizing our financials and allowing us to tell the districts we work with that we can work with them for a couple of years. So with this being a one-time fund, we were actually hoping with the RFP it was a guaranteed longer fund than that. Just a status update for our programs. We've offered over 275 services in the last 6 years. 7,000 children received glasses using their health insurance. Over 10,000 visited a dentist for successful dental care, and 3,500 have received hearing care. 3,400 have enrolled in health insurance with our help. As one small boy said when he received his glasses, "I didn't know raindrops sparkled." Kind of an interesting day to talk about raindrops, but for kids it's pretty critical. And for every dollar we receive from the county, we also leverage that with $2 more. So we hope that we've received the award of the contract, and we were hoping that it could be for more than 1 year at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ochoa, come on up. And there is a microphone, by the way, in that podium. So if you speak right there, we'll hear you.
Hello, my name is Sunny. I've been here a few times before, and I really do represent the staff at Healthier Kids Foundation. And just like Kathleen said, we really wanted to echo a thank you for refunding us again this year. And just kind of share what's been happening. And I had told Kathleen when I walked in today, one of the school districts, today is the last day of school. And a principal emailed me and said, "Hey, Sunny, it's the last day of school. One of our foster kids' glasses broke. Can we connect you today, and can you follow up with that family?" And I think that's very much of a point of what Kathleen was making. This really solidifies us back in the community that we're here and we're a continued resource to them. And that principal knew today is the last day of school, but he wanted to make sure that that child and that foster child had their glasses even over the summer, right? So we've had a really, really busy year. Kathleen didn't say, but just this year alone, we have provided over 74,000 services to date. By the end of this month, it'll probably be close to 74,700, but we could fill the Earthquake Stadium 4 times with all of the services that this little agency has provided this year. So thank you for your continued support.
Thank you for your comments. Supervisor Chavez, your light is on, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Oh, Dr.
Can I jump in? Just a technicality. It is a 3-year contract from the RFP, and we do 1-year allocations for the budget. So basically, that's the normal process because we don't allocate 2 years in advance. So you can tell people that you've got 3 years. Otherwise, we just have 2 years worth of money sitting in an account someplace so that Harvey Rose can complain about it sitting in an account someplace.
I know you meant that in a good way.
I was going to say, they're not even here to defend themselves. Shush.
No.
So, yeah. So it's a 3-year contract. It'll be for 3 years,
And is the 3-year contract at this same level? Is it
Yeah.
this amount each year? Great. Thank
you. Does the contract have an escalator in it? That I don't know. Yes.
It did? Okay, it has an escalator.
Okay, then it's got an escalator.
Great, thank you.
Oh, and
Go
You were going to ask me again to clarify the HSRs, what they do?
No, I'm good.
I've got
I
the
understood
list
what.
here.
Good. Well, I will get that from you. No, I actually just, I wondered if he answered my question because I was wondering how it's connected. So here's my question on, just to finish this question on this contract. So it's 3 years, and is it 3 years with a possible 2-year extension, or was it only 3 years? It's 3 years with an extension? Possible extension for 2 years. Great. Thank you.
A motion would be called for at this time. We have a motion approving the staff recommendation from Supervisor Chavez. It has been seconded by Supervisor Ellenberg. All members should please vote on their screens. That having been done, we can ask the clerk to display the results. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. That takes us to item number 113, our next item on the agenda. Dr. Smith, Mr. Aturia, brief presentation.
Yeah, before you is a revised county recommendation to provide a county grant allocation to support the Roots Community Health Center in the amount of $1 million.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, any cards on this item? There are none. I see no lights on, so Dr. Smith and Mr. Aturia, let me just ask, what's the status of this contract again? Do we have a long-term contract, or is there, I'm trying to think through the need for these annual revisions and how we might do this on a more stable, routine basis, if you understand what I'm asking.
Well, we have separate contracts for operational reimbursement based on how many patients are seen and, you know, what their coverage is. These monies are supplemental payments that the board previously discussed when we were supporting the Roots Clinic, and have been doing them on a year-to-year basis based on their need. So it's a discretionary expense, not dedicated specifically to any particular patient care, but essentially supporting them to keep the clinic up and running, mostly because there's been some lag time in generating revenue from patient care. So
I guess I'm just trying to understand what the future looks like and whether or not this is going to become a regular event, whether or not the contract should be restructured, whether it's too soon to tell.
At this point, I think it's too soon to tell because of the size problems they're having. They need a bigger building to actually take care of the patients that are in need. So I think it's a little too early to tell. Right. And if we, just like the other clinics, if we don't give them a lump sum, they have a financial problem immediately.
Okay.
But this one's different than the clinics in the sense that it's a different contract type.
Right. Well, I guess my only exhortation is that we both A, figure it out, and B, after we figured it out, communicate what we have figured out in a transparent way. Supervisor Chavez.
What I was just going to ask, as part of the clinic report back that Ms. Ellenberg asked for, if we could just do an update, because I think the point you're raising, which is a good one, is that some of the clinics, they're as part of our health assessments, we've done these health assessments that have helped us understand a need, and the need doesn't necessarily align with the funding that we think we should or could be getting, and what could be coming from private insurance, what will we have to always subsidize? I mean, really better understanding that. But I recognize this is a new one. But I think even just helping us understand more strategically those investments. I also just want to punctuate in a very volatile market and a very volatile environment. So I don't expect that we would know the answer to all of those questions, but a mechanism for checking in on them, perhaps mid-year instead of.
Yeah, we'll do our best to give you that information. As you point out, the real difference between this clinic and the others is that we participated in starting this clinic, whereas the others were already going, and we're participating in trying to assure that they stay going. So these are startup costs, basically, that are delayed.
And I think, and part of the reason I'm pressing on that is that I think there are lots of specialty clinics that we're really trying to stand up, and at some point, there's going to be a business plan that allows them to, for the most part, be funded up to a certain percent, and in others that may not be the case. And I think it would just be worth us having a bigger discussion at some point about which types of clinics fall into which category, because I think it's a really important question, and I think the point that Supervisor Simidian raised about how we have that conversation in a very transparent, open way so that we better understand what kinds of investments we should be making in the future and where and when we can do them.
Right, we'll do that. Just make sure I'm clear. Do you want those reports to come back to the full board or off agenda or to Health and Hospital Committee or all three?
I would suggest Health and Hospital Committee and then to the full board as part of mid-year budget, because I think the points you raise are right on, and actually even as we were talking about the work that Healthier Kids Foundation is doing, a lot of that was identified as work that needed to be done in the Children's Health Assessment, and so you're right, we have a strategy of responding. We just maybe need to think a little bit about the long-term funding strategy as well.
Right.
Thank you.
For Supervisor Ellenberg's benefit, the Roots Clinic really started as a response to the African American health assessment that was asked for by, I think it was Supervisor Cortese, and that's what led us to that endeavor and being sponsors.
Supervisor Ellenberg, I see your light is on, ma'am.
Thank you. And I think the downtown clinic was started about the same time, and we, the board, are supporting that clinic with an ongoing subsidy. And is that something that might be folded longer term into the Roots Clinic if it is distinct in the way you described, that this was really something that we started as well as the downtown clinic, as opposed to some of the other community clinics?
We can include that and report back to you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
But I think, just if I may, I think that it's slightly different only in this respect, that at the downtown clinic, because, and this is a question that I think would be really helpful for us to all understand, is we have the Tully Clinic, we have the downtown clinic, we have all these clinics that are, except not in Joe's area, as he's looking at me. I don't have a clinic, but anyway, we have all these clinics that are directly attached to a structure of service provision that we've had for a while. And so, for example, if we expand the downtown East Valley Clinic, it's a clinic we have that we're expanding. There are other clinics like the transgender clinic, even our Spark clinic, and those clinics that are very specialized that I think we're still learning how to run. And that was the distinction I was trying to make, Susan, not that one has more value over another, but really that the funding strategies for them, I'm just curious if they really are different, or if they're, and if not, why not, and to answer some of those questions. But the distinction I'm drawing is where we know we have a higher level, of investment, and they're newer, and we don't yet know all there is to know about running them.
Right. Let me, just for the public's sake, explain a little bit. The county actually owns and operates, as part of the license for the hospitals, 8 locations that we call clinics, some of them, well, all of them with multiple specialties. They are FQHC clinics owned and operated by the county with county employees and the like. The clinics that you're talking about, Supervisor Chavez, that is the transgender clinic and the public health clinics and the behavioral health clinics, are also owned and operated by the county, but in a different licensing arrangement. Roots Clinic is a separate clinic owned and operated by the Roots Group. We have partnered with them to start them up, and that's where we came up with the commitment to financially funding, but they're not county employees, and it's not county clinics. And then The other community clinics like Mayview, NIMS, Gardner, who am I leaving out? Lots of them, are also owned and operated by nonprofits, and we participate in helping them mostly with contracts for patient care services. And some of those patient care services are through medicine, some of them are through substance abuse, dental, mental health, and then we have a number of other contracts with them for social services and other benefits, but they are owned and operated by separate entities. So they all get treated a little differently financially because of their ownership operation, but we can report all this back in an off agenda.
Thank you for clarifying that.
All 5 votes have been cast. We'll ask the clerk to please display the results, and then we will announce that the measure has passed on a 5-0 vote, and that takes us to item number 114. I'll turn again to Dr. Smith and Mr. Aturia.
Okay, next we have the revised county executive recommendation for the VMCs to augment specialty care services. And this is a recommendation to add positions to support specialty care services.
Thank you. I will confirm with the clerk that we have no speakers on this item. I will ask for a motion, which we have from Supervisor Ellenberg. I'll see if there's a second, which we still need and now have from Supervisor Cortese. We'll ask all 5 members, please vote on their screens. But before we do that, we'll hear from Supervisor Chavez. Supervisor.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a very quick question about this. As we are looking at enhancing our rehabilitation services, and I apologize, I don't know who to ask this question of. So
Probably Paul Lorenz.
So Paul, what I was really interested in understanding is, one, I think that just to all the folks who work in our health and hospital system, you all do amazing work, and the Rehabilitation Center is just one of the most interesting places that we have, and the kind of leadership that the VMC staff is taking is tremendous. I'm wondering, are we, or have you all been asked, or have you considered whether or not we need to make investments for, or support investments for families when they leave our rehabilitation center and have to go home with potentially new needs? And what I'm really reflecting on is in the rehab center, how you're teaching people how to use, a new kind of bed or a lower stove or any of those things. And are we getting requests from families who can't afford, once they leave, to rehabilitate their homes or get ramps or any of those other things?
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez. Paul Lorenz, CEO of Valley Medical Center, members of the board. So one of the things that we do prior to discharge from the rehabilitation center is work with the families and the patient to prepare them for their home setting. Most of you may have toured the facility, but we have a special program which specifically target families that have to transition to a home setting. We also work with a number of different organizations within certain communities to support the families as they transition to the home. We probably have, in fact, we do not probably have, we have one of the lowest rates of readmission to the hospital or back to the hospital setting because of many of these transition programs that we employ. And
so right now we use nonprofit intermediaries to help get the homes ready, and if their insurance doesn't cover it, how does that occur?
How does that occur? So many of our...
Well, how is it paid for? Like who? And I'm just, the reason I'm asking the question is that we've only gotten 2, but we've had 2 requests to our office. We've sent them back to the hospital, and they haven't called us back, but we sent them to your staff, and I was just curious how that got resolved. Like, how do we have a fund that we help people with? Do we have nonprofit partners that help fund that? Is this something the VMC Foundation is working on?
It's a combination of all of the above. So depending on their insurance status, depending on the type of coverage the insurance programs have, In some instances, the insurance companies will pick up the transitional cost to support the family. The cost of returning to the hospital is much higher.
Right.
So they do understand the benefits of such programs. In some instances, we work with community nonprofit organizations, and there are some for-profit organizations that specifically contract with insurance companies to provide that service. So it's a combination of all of the above.
What I wanted to make sure of is that yesterday, as part of our budget discussion, we saw a $15 million fund for people who were underinsured, and which made sense to me that you would keep that fund available. What I was interested in understanding is if a fund like that kicked in for families that were underinsured, where they wouldn't have the resources they need to move back into their home. Is that something we're doing now?
We do not have a specific fund to fund activities like this. We typically, as stated earlier, work with a number of different service organizations or insurance plans to ensure that they have the accessibility to these services. To the extent that we would look for donations or other support, we would look to the Valley Medical Center Foundation in those specific instances. But we do not have a specific fund for this type of activity.
So if I could, the request I would just make, if through the chair of the Valley, I'm sorry, of the Health and Hospital meeting, is I'd just be interested in getting an assessment of the percentage of people that do need additional resources, and what the ecosystem of those services look like. I'd just be interested in knowing that A, we're addressing them, but B, that who our partners are.
We would be happy to provide an off-agenda report to
Yeah,
you and the
I
board.
don't mind either way, but I would just leave it up to the chair.
Thank you for the courtesy, Supervisor Chavez. Let me just suggest that we do an off-agenda report, but then after we have a chance to look at the off-agenda report, see whether or not it bears some further consideration at the committee level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul.
All right, we'll ask all 5 members, please vote on the screen. This is item 114. All 5 members having voted, we'll ask the clerk to please display the results and announce that the motion carries 5-0. That's 114, 5-0. Takes us to item 115. Mr. Aturia, Dr. Smith.
Yes, before you is the county executive's revised recommendation for the hospital and clinic system relating to the purchase of equipment and fixed assets to support the recently acquired facilities at VMC O'Connor and St. Louis.
Thank you. I'll confirm with the clerk that we have no speakers on this item. We do not, so I'll ask for a motion. The screen is up, folks. Motion by Chavez, second by Cortese. That is to approve the staff recommendation contained in item number 115. In the absence of any questions or comments, and seeing none, we'll ask all 5 members to please vote on their screens. That having been done, we'll ask the clerk to display the results and announce that the motion carries 5-0. That takes us to item 116. Dr. Smith, Mr. Aturia.
And this is the request by the county executive to approve their recommended budget as revised on the points that we just taken up, and to refer for final consideration and approval on June 14th.
All right. Well, we do have a motion to approve from Supervisor Chavez. And do we have a second, colleagues? We do. We have a second from Mr. Wasserman. Before I go to Supervisor Ellenberg, I want to confirm with the clerk we have no speakers. Supervisor Ellenberg, the mic is yours.
Thank you. I just want to reaffirm my same point from yesterday, that this $3.4 million, rather than being dispersed and folded into the general budget, that we look at keeping it directly focused on kids, and specifically a facilities fund that would address the one-time needs.
Duly noted. We'd have a motion from Chavez, a second from Wasserman. Could we ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen? And all votes having been cast, we'll ask the clerk to display the results and announce that item 116 is approved on a 5-0 vote. That takes us to item 117. Mr. Aturia, Dr. Smith.
Yes, before you is the request to consider the county executive's recommended budget for community health services and refer it to Friday for final consideration.
All right. No cards on this item from speakers, Madam Clerk? There are none. Could we get a motion? We have a motion from Supervisor Ellenberg. How about a second? We have a second from Supervisor Wasserman. Well, in the absence of any questions or comments, please vote on this. And all 5 members having voted, we'll ask the clerk to display the results and announce that item 117 passes 5-0. That takes us to item 118.
And the recommended action under item 118 is to consider the recommended budget for the Public Health Department and to refer it to Friday for final consideration.
Thank you very much. We have no cards on this item. Do we have a motion to approve? Do we have a second? Motion by Chavez, second by Wasserman. And before I cast my vote, I just want to say thank you to the administration for following up on the distracted driving public health issue that I had referenced earlier in my State of the County remarks, and I'm looking forward to finding a way to make that a higher priority item and to see if we can't save some lives along the way. Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you. I think that's a really great initiative, so I'm really excited about it. I had a question, and I didn't know if this was under the Public Health Department or not. So, Dr. Smith, you and I took a tour some time ago of the Timpani Center, and behind the building of the Timpani Center, we have public health nurses that are providing support for children that are disabled, and I can't remember the name of those buildings that are in back there. And I didn't know, are those programs primarily run by public health, or are they run by, I actually don't even know who else they would be run by, but that's.
Paul. I'll have to ask Paul Lorenz to come up.
Mr. Lorenz, welcome back.
Thank you, Supervisor. So the Timpani Center is operated by San Jose State University.
Not the Timpani Center. It's the buildings where we are providing health services and like physical therapy and other services for developmentally disabled or physically disabled children.
Are these the California Children's Services, Mr. Lorenz?
So there is a building located next to the Medical Association facility, which is a brick building. That one-story building is operated by the Public Health Department, which is the California Children's Services facility.
But it's our Public Health Department that's providing those services?
It is our Public Health Department.
So the reason I wanted to raise this is that if you all have not had an opportunity to look at the facilities, the services there are remarkable, but the facilities there are, they're in desperate need of some rehabilitation, and since we don't own that facility, I'm mostly just putting it on your radar, maybe not your radar, but maybe Dr. Cody's radar. I'm not sure whose radar this goes on, but I would very much like to get an assessment of what the needs of those buildings are, even if we don't own them, because the condition of them, the equipment looks great. It's the condition of the facilities that does not look great.
We're bringing our deferred maintenance expert, Dr. Sarah Cody, up here to help us with this item. Dr. Cody, welcome.
Whoops.
You're live.
Sarah Cody, Public Health Director. I just am confirming that, yes, this is the California Children's Services. It's a program within the Public Health Department. And the main CCS administration in the brick building that Mr. Lorenz referenced is a leased building. And then behind that is one of the sites of the medical therapy unit where public health staff provide physical and occupational therapy. And I honestly can't recall whether we own or lease the building.
If I could just get an off-agenda report, just because I think if any of you haven't walked through that building, it would be important to just get an assessment of the needs of the building, and then the board can decide where it would go or not go based on who owns it and what kind of work is needed, but it needs work.
We're certainly aware of the condition of the building. I think this is Fleet and Facilities.
We'll get you a report back.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dr. Cody, I meant to avert my gaze to this direction, so thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez, and thank you, Dr. Cody and Mr. Lorenz. And all kidding aside, this is why, from time to time I rise up as the deferred maintenance warrior on the board. And I really do want to acknowledge the fact that the administration over the last few years, given our budget situation, has been making an effort to try and make sure that we're spending funds appropriately there. It's not, to me, it's not some abstract budgeting or accounting or fleets and facilities issue. It really goes to our ability to provide people who need our services the services that they deserve in a setting that is consistent with providing top quality service. So thank you both, and appreciate the willingness of administration to provide an off-agenda report that will go to all 5 members of the board in response to Supervisor Chavez's request. So we'll now ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. This is item 118, and all 5 members having voted, we'll ask the clerk to display the results. Announce that 118, the motion carries 5-0. That is the staff recommendation. Thank you. Item 119.
Item 119 is a request for the board to consider the recommended budget for the Custody Health Department and to refer for final consideration on Friday, June 14th.
If we can get a motion and a second, please, colleagues, while I confirm that there are no speakers. There are none from the public. And I see a motion from Wasserman and a second from Ellenberg to approve the staff recommended action. Ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. That's now been done, so we'll ask the clerk to please display the results and announce that the motion carries 5-0. Item 120.
Item 120 is a recommended action is to consider the recommended budget for the Behavioral Health Services Department and to refer it to Friday for final consideration.
Thank you very much. We have a motion to approve the staff recommended action from Supervisor Ellenberg. We have a second by Supervisor Wasserman. Do we have speakers on this item from the public? We do not. Comments or questions from members of the board? Seeing none, we'll ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. And now that that's been done, we'll ask the clerk to please display the results so we can announce that the motion on item 120 passes 5-0. And for members of the public who may be watching and or staff members who are here today, when we move through some of these items as quickly as we do, please know it's not because they're not important. It may simply be because there have been no changes from our workshops, which we held in May, or because the questions or concerns that we've raised prior to today's board's meeting have been addressed. So please know we have given every one of these items the depth of consideration that they each require and deserve. Takes us to item 121. This is Alum Rock Union Elementary School District. Mr. Aturia.
Yeah, before you is inventory item from Supervisor Cortese to provide funding to the Alum Rock Union Elementary School District for continuing preventive services utilizing school-linked services.
Thank you very much. And excuse me, Supervisor Cortese, I didn't mean to preclude you from presenting your item. If there's anything you'd like to share.
This is an augmentation of an ongoing program that exists in Elm Rock Union Elementary School District already. This was really the minimum they need to continue the level of service that they've been utilizing since our initial hookup with them on the schooling services program. They initially asked for a significantly higher amount of money for this year, and then went back to the drawing board and came back with the $60,000 as broken down as indicated in the memo. So we think it's important work to continue, and I'd like to make the motion, ask for my colleagues' support.
All right, we have the motion panel up and a motion now by Supervisor Cortese, a second by Supervisor Chavez. Let me just ask staff or Supervisor Cortese, I have supported the funding for Alum Rock in the past and plan to do so again today, but I am constantly reminded that this is a district that has experienced some turmoil. Recent press reports just within the last month about audit findings around expenditures for both legal counsel and construction firms. Are we clear that we can be confident that the funds that are expended will be used for the purposes described in the referral, Mr. Aturia and/or Mr. Cortese. That's my concern.
Sure, one of the actions that the board took yesterday was the delegation of authority to the clerk of the board for the use of our contract template, and a contract template developed by Office of the County Council that can make sure that we're prescribing what the uses are and limiting those uses to that what's prescribed in this item as well as on the contract.
I would also just ask behavioral health to continue to monitor the actual implementation of the programs out there closely, because there's no better, evidence for us on the question that you're raising than just seeing that they actually have these folks, interacting with the students and the families and so forth, irrespective of whatever other issues they're trying to resolve from the past.
Great. Supervisor Cortese, would you be comfortable incorporating both your comments and Mr. Aturia's comments in the motion, just so that we're
that was mine.
Thank you for that. I think just so my view is clear on this subject, these are a struggle for me because on the one hand, you want to make sure the kids are getting the services that the kids themselves deserve. On the other hand, if either board members or administration in a particular jurisdiction are struggling to meet the standard that we think is reasonable, that's a source of concern. You don't want to let the one get in the way of the other. So I'm happy to support with those assurances, and thank you for providing them. And we'll ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. That having been done, we'll ask the clerk to display the results and announce that item 121 passes on a 5-0 vote. We go to item 122, and this one is for Mr. Aturia and Dr. Smith, I believe.
Yes, item number 122 is recommended to consider the recommended budget for the emergency services budget unit, as well as to refer it to final consideration on Friday.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve from Supervisor Wasserman, a second from Supervisor Chavez. We have no cards from members of the public, Madam Clerk. Do we have any comments or questions? If not, we'll ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. That having almost been done, we'll wait on one more member of the board. And then we'll indicate that the motion, if the screen would work, the motion carries 5-0. That's item 122. Thank you. That takes us to item 123. Mr. Aturia and Dr. Smith.
I'm going to do the Valley Health Plan.
Thank you.
So 123 is a revised recommendation compared with the recommended budget that you heard during the workshops, and this is to delete positions and add positions, basically to get the right mix of personnel, and we became aware of this after the recommended budget was complete. So we're asking you to approve it and refer it along to the 14th.
All right. No comments from members of the public. We do have the motion screen displayed, colleagues, so if we can get a motion to approve. We have that from Supervisor Cortese. Thank you. Is there a second, please? We have a second from Supervisor Ellenberg. We'll ask all 5 members to please vote on their screens. That having been done, we'll ask the clerk to please display the results and indicate that item 123 passes on a 5-0 vote. That takes us to item 124. And here again, we look to Dr. Smith and Mr. Aturia.
124 is consideration of the recommended budget changes that you saw in the May 1st recommended budget and discussed during the workshop, and we're asking you to approve it, refer it to the 14th. A question that I've received from 1 or 2 board members that I'd like to clarify at this time is that there is a contract currently with between VHP and the Family Health Plan, and our intention is to continue that for another year, and it's included in this budget, and that will be done outside of the budget process because we have delegation of authority, so you won't have to see the contract, but I know there was questions about whether contract was going to continue, and it will.
Thank you very much. No cards from members of the public. So we have a motion pending. Chair would gratefully entertain a motion to move approval. Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. Thank you to Mr. Wasserman for the second. We'll ask all 5 members to vote on their screens, and we'll indicate that all votes have been cast so that we can display the result. And item 124 passes on a 5-0 vote, taking us to item number 125. And these are technology positions in connection with the District Attorney's Office.
Item number 125 includes a recommended action to add positions in the Office of the District Attorney related to information technology capabilities. And we ask that you refer the item for final consideration on Friday.
No cards for members of the public, Madam Clerk. And we'll ask for a motion, which we have from Supervisor Wasserman and a second from Supervisor Ellenberg. Do note that the district attorney is here, but apparently is not rushing towards a microphone at the moment. So we're just going to ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. And that having been done, we can display the results and announce that the measure passes on a 5-0 vote. And that takes us to item number 126. Dr. Smith.
Item number 126 is the recommended action to add a position for pre-arrangement representation and review team in the Office of the District Attorney, and to refer the item for final consideration on Friday.
Thank you very much. No comments from members of the public. Motion by Ellenberg, second by Wasserman. Ask all 5 members to please vote on their screens. That having been done, we'll ask the clerk to display the results and announce that item 126 passes on a 5-0 vote. Takes us to item 127. Dr. Smith, Mr. Aturia, this is the revised recommendation budget for Office of the District Attorney.
That's correct, and the recommendation is to refer it for final consideration on Friday, June 14.
All right. We have a motion to that effect from Supervisor Wasserman, a second from Supervisor Chavez. No members of the public who have desired to speak. We'll ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. All votes have been cast. We'll ask the clerk to display the results and announce that the budget is approved 5-0. That's item 127. And
it seems that the less I say, the more effective I am.
thank you for being here. And please know that you're welcome to stay for the remainder of the budget hearings if you wish, Mr. Rosen. Thank you. All right. That takes us to item 128. This is another time I turn to Mr. Aturia and Dr. Smith. Revised County Executive Recommendation for Office of the Public Defender for Immigration Services.
Yes, item number 28 is a revised county executive recommendation to add positions to the Office of the Public Defender to support immigration consulting services. And we ask that you refer the item for final consideration to Friday, June 14.
Thank you. There are no speakers on this item. I do have a motion to approve from Supervisor Wasserman and a second from Supervisor Ellenberg. Comments or questions? If none, we'll ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. We have just one supervisor remaining. All votes have now been cast. Results are 5-0 on item 128. The measure is approved unanimously. Takes us to item 129. Here again, I'm going to turn to Dr. Smith and Mr. Aturia.
Item number 29 is a request to consider the county executive's revised recommendation for the Office of Public Defender, adding positions for their pre-arraignment representation and review team, and to refer the item for final consideration to Friday, June 14.
Thank you very much. No speakers on this one, Madam Clerk. We do have a motion from Supervisor Wasserman, second from Supervisor Ellenberg. Please vote on the screen, colleagues. Clerk will display. The results are 5-0 on item 129, passed unanimously. Item 130.
Item 130 is a recommendation to consider the revised recommended budget for the Office of the Public Defender and to refer it to Friday, June 14th for final consideration.
I note the presence of the Public Defender, Molly O'Neill. Any desire to speak to this item? None. Then we do have a motion to approve from Mike Wasserman. We have a second from Susan Ellenberg. I'll ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. All 5 votes having been cast, we'll ask the clerk to please display the results and indicate that the measure passes 5-0. That's item 130, unanimously approved. Item 131.
Item 131 is a recommendation to consider the county executive's recommended budget for the Office of Pretrial Services and to refer the budget for final consideration on Friday.
Thank you very much. I'm going to confirm with the clerk we have no cards on this item, item 131. We do have a motion from Supervisor Wasserman, seconded by Supervisor Ellenberg, and a comment or question from Supervisor Chavez before we call for the vote.
Thank you. Under this item, we also had a letter, one of our budget letters that I just wanted to refer to. And what I wanted to ask Dr. Smith, if we can start receiving the pretrial services numbers of people who are going through the program, including the number of folks that are on supervised, our SORT program. And what I would like to start doing is getting a dashboard that's similar to the one we receive confidentially for the jails, so that we better understand where people are in the process.
Yes, we've got a dashboard we can share with the board, so we'll do that.
And could that dashboard be shared with a similar time? Like we get the sheriffs every day. Is this something we could get every day that's similar?
Aaron?
Aaron Johnson, Director of Pretrial Services. Yes, we could provide that.
Great, thank you.
All right, this is item 131. Again, we have a motion from Supervisor Wasserman, a second from Supervisor Ellenberg, and we need all 5 members to please vote on their screen. Now that that's been done, we can ask the clerk to please display the results, and the measure carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Takes us to item 132.
Item 132 is the revised county executive recommendation for the Criminal Justice System-wide Cost Budget Unit relating to funding for a Juvenile Justice Collaborative Court Coordinator. Recommended action is to consider this funding and to refer it to Friday for final consideration.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we do have one card on this item, and it's from Mr. Ron Hansen. I'd like to invite him up now, share his thoughts if he wishes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Supervisors and County Executive Smith. I am Ron Hansen. I am Vice Chair of the Juvenile Justice Commission, and on behalf of the Commission, I express our unqualified support for funding a court coordinator for our juvenile court. Please don't confuse my brief comments today for a lack of passion for the positive work done by our juvenile court system. Support for funding this coordinator position is more needed than ever due to the continued diminished funding from the state for our county's Superior Court. Specialty courts, of which our juvenile court system is a nationally recognized model, cannot continue in their good work without maintaining this key coordinator position. The Juvenile Justice Commission urges your approval for continued funding for the court coordinator. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk, I believe that's the only speaker we had on that item. It is. We do have a motion to approve from Supervisor Wasserman, second by Supervisor Ellenberg. We'll ask all 5 members to please vote on their screens. All 5 votes have now been cast, and so we'll ask the clerk to display the results and announce that item 132 is approved unanimously. That's a 5-0 vote on item 132. That takes us to item 133.
Item 133 is a recommendation to consider the county executive's revised recommended budget for the criminal justice system-wide cost budget and refer the item to Friday for final consideration.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers on this item? We do not. We do have a motion to approve the recommended action from Supervisor Wasserman, seconded by Supervisor Chavez. No comments or questions, so we'll ask all 5 members to please vote on their screens. All 5 votes have been cast, so we'll ask the clerk to please display the results. 5-0 approved. Thank you. Next item is item 134.
Item 134 is a request to consider the county executive's revised recommendation for the Office of the Sheriff, adding a position to help support the California Law Enforcement Telecommunication Systems Compliance Unit, and to refer this item to Friday for final consideration.
Thank you very much. No public speakers. I have a motion to approve from Supervisor Wasserman, seconded by Supervisor Cortese. We'll ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. Approved 5-0. Thank you very much. Forgive my cough, colleagues. That takes us to item 135.
Item 135 is a request to consider the county executive's revised recommended budget for the Office of the Sheriff and to refer it to Friday for final consideration.
Any speakers, Madam Clerk? I do note the presence of the Sheriff, and I just want to make sure that Sheriff Lori Smith knows that if she wishes to, she's perfectly welcome to come up and comment. She's going to pass on that opportunity. We do have a motion to approve from Supervisor Wasserman and a second from Supervisor Cortese. Any comments or questions? If not, we'll ask all 5 members to please vote on their screen. And that having been done, we'll note that the motion passes on a 5-0 vote. Once again, that's item 135, passing on a 5-0 vote. Item 136.
And item 136 is a request to consider a revised recommended action from the county exec to add a position in the Department of Correction to support diet management and to refer the item to Friday for final consideration.
Thanks. We have a motion from Supervisor Wasserman, a second from Supervisor Cortese. Do we have any cards? We don't. Mr. Wasserman and Mr. Cortese, I am going to support the item, of course, but I wonder if we could just add a request to get a report on inmate nutrition to our Public Safety and Justice Commission. I do think it's sort of an issue that would be helpful. Without objection, and I see Supervisor Chavez leaning in.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I think it's been a while, and I can't remember the answer to this, but whenever that report comes up, it might be of value to see from the last survey we did about the satisfaction around food, because I actually think that question may have been pulled out, just as a reminder, because I know that when I toured the jails, the number one thing people talked to me about was the food, and that was pretty, I mean, and I think the complaint was it was healthy and not tasty. So I'm just saying that because it might be of value.
And we all miss Supervisor Yeager.
Yes, and let me just ask, Dr. Smith, I assume that the request for that report should go to Chief of Correction, yes, or to the Sheriff?
Sure, we'll get your report back. Thank you.
And I think Supervisor Chavez's point is well made in all seriousness. One issue is just, do people find the menu appealing or appetizing? But the other issue, and the issue that I'm going to, is it a fundamentally nutritious meal? If we've got people there for longer and longer periods of time, which we do, then I think that needs to be a concern. So I appreciate the maker and the seconder, as well as the rest of the board, being willing to incorporate the requests, plural, including Supervisor Chavez's, into the motion. We'll ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen, and item 136 is approved 5-0. Thank you very much. That takes us to item 137.
Item 137 is a request to consider the county executive's revised recommendations for the Department of Corrections relating to jail monitoring to support jail monitoring costs required by the consent decree.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve from Supervisor Wasserman, a second from Supervisor Chavez. No members of the public who desire to speak. Thank you. We'll ask all 5 members to please vote on their screens. And all votes having been cast, we'll ask the clerk to display the results so that we can announce that item 137 is approved unanimously. That's 5-0. Thank you. That takes us to item 138.
Item 138 is a request by the county executive to consider the revised recommended budget for the Department of Correction and to refer the item for final consideration on Friday, June 14.
Motion to approve by Wasserman. Second is by Ellenberg. Do we have any cards? We do not have members of the public who wish to speak. No comments or questions from members of the board, so we'll ask all 5 members to please vote on their screen. And all 5 members now having voted, will ask the clerk to display the results and announce that item 138 passes 5-0. That is unanimous. Item 139.
Item 139 is a request from the county executive to consider a revised recommendation for the probation department to support their personnel unit, adding a position, and to refer the item for final consideration on Friday.
All right, thank you very much. Colleagues, we do have someone who would like to speak on item 139, so if I could please call Dolores Morales up to the microphone. And when we get to item 140, I'll be calling Mark Murray up. Just want to let him know I have the card. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Dolores Morales. I'm the president of SEMA. I want to thank the board for adding or considering to add the senior management analyst or management analyst position. We have a great need for this position, and we look forward to our continued partnership with the county exec's office and the board in terms of resolving our hiring and retention issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me confirm with the clerk, we have no other speakers on item 139. And let me just ask Dr. Smith or Mr. Aturia, we had an audit. We didn't do as well as we hoped we would under the audit. This is designed to remedy the deficiencies in the audit. Is that correct? Dr. Smith, I see your light is on. Okay.
If you want more detail, Laura, I was here a second ago.
And let me just, thank you. And the hope and expectation is that with this additional staff person, we'll be able to do an ever better job on the confidentiality of the records for which we are responsible. Is that the idea here?
Hi, good afternoon, President Smidian, board members, staff. Yes, that's the idea.
Okay. Won't surprise you to hear that I think that's an important function, and I'm glad that if we are not where we should be, that we're taking the steps to make sure that we are where we should be. I'll let it go at that. Anyone else on this item, item 139? If not, we'll ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen, and we'll ask the clerk to display the results, and that indicates a 5-0 unanimous vote in support of the recommended action for item 139. That takes us to item 140. Ms. Morales, did you want to come back on this item? And Mr. Murray. And there is a microphone built into that black podium. So
I tried to be a gentleman and allow her to go first, but she insisted on me going first. Good afternoon. Mark Murray with the Probation Peace Officers Union. Hope you guys are all doing well. Just wanted to thank you for your ongoing support of the Probation Department. I know my members really appreciate knowing that the folks here at 70 West who are elected officials support the work that we're doing, so thank you all for that. I did want to ask a friendly reminder in regards to the probation officer position in the young adult deferred entry judgment position, that perhaps you will take that.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's on 141.
Okay. I don't know if there was a position associated with that other than the
We're going to explain.
Okay. I will give you the benefit of that doubt, sir.
Hold your breath.
Okay. Should I sit down now?
And I'll call you up on 141 if you wish to be called. Meanwhile, Ms. Morales, did you want to comment on item 140? We have 2 speakers who are overlapping here slightly, colleagues. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for hiring us. I'm just here to support the probation department and the budget. We definitely do a lot of different work relating to youth and adults related to the justice system. So we just want to thank you for your continued support and a deep understanding of the issues that we face. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, colleagues, we are at item 140. And we have a motion by Wasserman and a second by Ellenberg, and that is to support the recommended action. We have no other speakers on item 140. So if all 5 members will please vote on the screen. We're waiting on just 1 member. And now all votes have been cast, and we'll display the result. The measure carries 5-0. Now that takes us to item 141, So I'm going to look to both Mr. Aturia and Dr. Smith, and also to Supervisors Chavez and Ellenberg, since this is a budget inventory item, I believe. All good. Who'd like to? Okay.
Yeah, we can introduce.
Talk about it and then go ahead.
Yeah, item number 141 is a inventory item submitted by Supervisor Chavez and Ellenberg relating to the provision of services for youth adult deferred entry judgment program. And just to follow up on the topic of the last speaker, the county administration is also working on a transition plan and continued staffing for the deferred entry adjustment program to ensure adequate staffing, and taking a look at all the existing positions within the department right now to make sure that that staffing need is met. And again, just to add that complementary information, but that is separate from this particular inventory item. So I do invite, or suggest that we hear from the board members sponsoring those items.
All right. We do have one card from Katie Sandoval Clark. So if you'd like to come up, and then Mr. Murray, if you'd like to come up, or if you'd like to wait until even more information is revealed, we'll let you choose. Ms. Sandoval Clark, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Katie Sandoval Clark. I am FLY's Director of Community Resources. As you know, FLY is committed to breaking the cycle of juvenile crime, violence, and incarceration, and we work with young people and young adults all across Santa Clara County to do that. I wanted to just take 1 minute of your time today to thank you so much for your support of FLY over the years and all the work that we're doing. We wanted to express our gratitude that you're considering supporting funding for the Stay FLY program through the YADEJ program in partnership with probation. This program would add additional services for young first-time offenders ages 18 to 21 to really give them the wraparound support that they need to thrive. We want to especially thank Supervisor Chavez and Supervisor Ellenberg for putting this inventory item forth. And we just wanted to say, FLY is dedicated to making sure that all our children have a chance to be more than their past mistakes. And what we see more and more is that mistakes are not the purview of only children, that all of us make mistakes, and we need to give our young adults that chance as well. We need to give people a chance to get the support they need to move forward from their mistakes, which is going to help us create a healthier and safer and happier community for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Excuse me. When I saw this, I jumped hastily. I saw it was for probation. I was in favor of that. But this is a referral from Chavez and Ellenberg, and I think for the record they should be on there as motion makers and seconds. So if you wouldn't mind and clear the slate and allow them that.
Without objection
right.
and hearing none, we'll ask the clerk to please clear the screen.
Thank you.
The screen has been cleared. We'll now ask the clerk to please repost the screen. We'll ask if there is a motion. After all that courtesy, let's not.
I was going to wait, but Mike, don't jump in there again.
Okay. Now, we have a motion by Ellenberg and a second by Chavez. Supervisor Chavez and Ellenberg, this is your budget inventory item. Comments, if any, at this time? Who would like to go first? Ms. Ellenberg, thank you.
Sure, thank you. I want to start by thanking Supervisor Chavez for the opportunity to co-sponsor this item with you. I really think that it is critical. FLY has been doing really impressive work with our juvenile population for years, and the model doesn't become irrelevant when kids turn 18. And frankly, I think we need more of that model as our population gets older. And as we've seen that our number of juveniles in juvenile hall and the ranch are decreasing significantly, we really have an opportunity through not only the deferred entry of judgment programs, but through other things possibly coming through the California legislature to move more young adults 18 to 21. I would advocate for 18 to 25-year-olds to get the kind of services that are available in juvenile hall because we know that they work. We know that recidivism can be reduced. So I'm really glad to support this and look forward to seeing the data.
Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you, and thank you, Susan. I think FLY is a great program, and you've been such good partners with us that we're going to learn a lot from this pilot, and that's really the most important thing. And I just want to emphasize that because I feel like one of the challenges we have in our work is that we have to figure out a way to acknowledge what we learn, and that we're not always going to get it right the first time. So I just want to emphasize the pilot part of this. Dr. Smith, you already know what I'm going to ask you, don't you?
About the position.
Yes.
Yes, I was going to try to clarify, but go ahead and finish.
No, go ahead, please.
So as a complement to the participation of FLY in the Deferred Entry of Judgment program, the court participation by the department requires an additional person, a probation officer, to be present. And that's what Mr. Aturia was referring to when we say that we're working with the department in order to assure that that happens, whether it's current positions that are reallocated or if we need to create a new position. So I'm hopeful we'll have that done by the 14th, and so it's possible we might have a change in the recommendation to add a new position, or it's possible we might come back and tell you that we've got sufficient funds that we, in salary savings, that we can just fund a position. But I wanted to let you know and realize that we intend to have another person there in court. Sadly, the person who's currently doing the job is planning on retiring, although I've told Laura that that's not possible. And so we need another person at least.
So if I could just follow up on that, there are two issues that I want to make sure I just raise with the staff, and just so two concerns I have. One is that I think the program does require two people because I think these are higher need kids, and we want to make sure that we have enough supervision. So irrespective of what happens, that we have two folks there. The other thing I just wanted to comment on is, and I'm sure it'd be interesting to get your perspective too, Susan, as you're coming on board and leading the work in our public safety and justice area, that as we move more and more people out of custody, and as we're seeing more and more opportunities for supervision, the last thing I want to do is sort of rob Peter to pay Paul within this department. And if there was any readjustment of a position, I would want to better understand that we're not increasing caseloads in other areas, because the volume of caseload that we have for these types of positions within the probation department are so high already. So as you come back to us, if you could just help us understand the strategic thinking, and that it won't negatively impact the other folks we're asking them to supervise.
Yes.
That would be great. Thank you.
Mr. Murray, you had a card in earlier. Would you like to speak on this item?
Thank you all. I appreciate you.
Chief Garnett, anything else from you on this item? Supervisor Chavez and Ellenberg, we're good to go. Further clarification, Mr. Ituria or Dr. Smith?
No further clarification needed.
All right, then we'll ask all five members. Please vote on their screens. That having been done, we'll ask the clerk to please display the results and announce that item 141 passes on a 5-0 vote. Thank you very much. That takes us to item 142.
And item 142 is a request by the county executive to consider the recommended budget for the medical examiner coroner and to refer the budget for final consideration to Friday the 14th.
Do we have any speakers on this item, Madam Clerk? We do not. We have a motion to approve from Supervisor Ellenberg and a second from Supervisor Wasserman. Do we have any comments or questions from members of the staff? Any comments or questions from members of the Board of Supervisors? If not, we'll ask all 5 members to please vote on the screen. And all votes having been cast, we'll ask the clerk to display the results and indicate that the motion carries 5-0. Takes us to item number 143. Consider items of concern and refer to administration for review and report. Mr. Iteria, what do you think that means?
This is simply an opportunity, if there's anything else that hasn't already been clearly communicated for board members, to provide additional referrals to administration for research or information.
Well, it's a pretty wide open topic. I think it's risky of you to have such an item on our agenda when you ask for items of concern. But let me turn
Move
the
that
board,
you eliminate it.
to the board. See, are there any items under item 143? Kevin Durant's injury. Thank you. All right. Well, then, without objection and hearing none, there will be no action on item 143. I think that's appropriate under the circumstances, Mr. Iteria and Dr. Smith and Madam Clerk. That takes us to item 144, colleagues, which is simply to announce that having completed the business of the day, we stand in recess until Wednesday, June the 12th at 1:30 p.m. in these board chambers. Without objection and hearing none, we are in recess.